Okay, so it's just after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, UK, and it's the Tuesday, the 23rd of July. Let me share my screen. So, share my screen again. There we go. There we go. So you should now be able to see my trading view screen. I'm looking at Euro US dollar on the 15-minute chart. So Costello is a fairly straightforward strategy, and we do this twice a day. And at 1 p.m. we look at the top four pairs on this list: 1, 2, 3, 4. And at 6 a.m. UK time, we look at the bottom four pairs. And basically what we do is we put two trend lines on the chart. We put a green trend line roughly above where price is at the minute, and I put a red trend line roughly below where price is at the minute. I put those on the 15-minute chart, and this is the 1 o'clock candle, and I'm waiting until that closes. So that's going to be in 11 minutes. And then I'm going to place those trend lines accurately. And basically, we look at price going above the green trend line, and we start looking for buying opportunities. Or if it goes below the red line, we start looking for selling opportunities. And we do that on all 12 players. We do that I normally do it on the 2-minute time frame, but I'm going to try doing it on the 1-minute time frame today. I'm going to look at the news. I always look at the news before I get involved in trading. There's very little news on Forex Factory. There's been nothing at all. There's just 2 items yesterday. There's 3 items today. None of them are red flag. There are a couple of US dollar medium impact items for 3 p.m. this afternoon, 3 p.m. UK time. But apart from that, there's no other news. There's a bit more news tomorrow, so that should be a better trading day. I'm going to look at MyFX Look. They take a different view of things, and they are looking at US dollar 5 minutes to 2, but it's low impact news. They've got medium on the euro at 3 o'clock, and then they've got a few US dollar items, including 2 high impact ones. So I have a feeling that we might be waiting until 3 o'clock for any big moves. And obviously, you'll heard me say before that I suspect that what happens when there is some high impact news, that the big boys use that news to disguise their price manipulation. So it may well be that we have to wait until 3 o'clock for that to happen. I'm going to go back to Euro US. We've got 9 minutes left. So what I normally do is I look back at what happened this morning. However, because there was no news this morning, on the usual cross-side pairs, there was very little to report. I'm just going to quickly go through them and see if I can find anything. There was nothing on the put out the 1-minute chart, go back to 6 a.m. There was a couple of nearly trades, but not quite. And then I'm going to look at Euro US because that did present us with an opportunity this morning. So I can get my computer to behave. If I put the indicators back on, and put the water actor back on, and if we look at around about 6 o'clock this morning, you can see that at 6 o'clock price was still in no man's land. That's between the green and the red trend lines, so we never get in at that point. Basically, I wait until price either drops below the red trend line or above the green trend line. So it was below the red trend line when I drew the trend line, drew the trend lines on at 6:15. So basically, we were in a wave down, which is this indicator here, wave down, but we had a green cloud, so that was telling me conflicting information. So I wouldn't get in at that point. I would wait until we had some confluence, and I'm going to be looking at the water at it as well. So what I'm looking for is this black line to not only be above the red line, but to be pointing away from it, and for us to have a histogram above the black line. So as you can see, that condition wasn't satisfied at all this morning. There was one candle there when it was satisfied, that was 7:33. So I might have been tempted to look at that, but if you look at 7:33 on the actual chart, we were still not above the green trend line, so we couldn't get in for a buy at that point. So right the way through till 8 o'clock, there was a couple more instances here where we could have come back and had a look at it, but price was just popping its head out above the green trend line. There was no trade to be had there. And even if you go until 9, looking for a trade, you're looking at no satisfactory situations here. That was potentially, it wasn't good enough. So there was no trade on Euro US. I think there was a potential trade on Euro NZD. There we go. I'm marking this up. I didn't get in the trade. It's a little bit cautious because of the lack of news. But basically, once again, we have the red and the green trend lines. We're below the red trend line, so we're looking basically for sells. Up until this point, we had price sort of clinging to the 200 moving average. It then made a move down. So we're looking down here. I had a good situation with the water atta. The black line was pointing away from the red line and the histogram was above the black line. So that would have been a potential time to get in. But I think the stop loss would have had to have been up at the 200 moving average at least. I normally like on Euro US, sorry, Euro New Zealand, I like a bit more than 5 pips. But I marked it up at the black line and taking it down to 1 to 2, it would have had to go back down to there. And as you can see, it didn't quite make it. So I wasn't tempted into that one. And part of the reason was, if you look left, if you go back up to the 15-minute chart and look left, there was nothing to tell me that price might go back to that point. So I'm just hoping this reappears. So, go to imbalance and see if I can find any imbalance. So we were looking at price going down there. This imbalance had been taken out already. There's a bit of imbalance really further down, but not enough to tempt me to get in there. It was really slow news day. So GBP, AUD, there was nothing, I believe. I'll go down to the 1 minute. Go back to take off that down. So just after 6 o'clock, again, there was the green trend line. Price never went above the green trend line. Even at 8 o'clock, it still hadn't been above. We were essentially looking for sells because we're below the red trend line. But as you can see, it was a lot of sideways movement. This water atta was totally wrong. That was the first opportunity on that candle, but as you can see, price was really close to the 200 moving average, and it did what it usually does, not always, but a lot of the time it bounces off the 200 moving average. It went back up, it came back and had another try. It did break through the 200, but the water atta wasn't telling me to get in. There was a slight improvement here where there was water atta was good, but because price wasn't above, it's going to reset that. What's happening? Don't know what happened there, but we'll try and solve that. We ended up with a water atta way out of context there. So I'm going to go back to TBP and VD and see if that will solve it. No, that hasn't solved it. So let's see what's happening. Okay, I haven't solved it, but I've removed the problem for now. Let's have a look at GBP NVD for 6 o'clock this morning. Okay, so I think I've solved that problem. So it's this morning on GBP NVD, it was another one like the Euro NZD. It was an almost trade, slightly. This is not there we go. So at 6 o'clock. I'm just going to get the computer to just keep the chart still. So anyway, 6 o'clock we were in no man's land. We came down. We were then, but we found the 200, which is a black line preventing or resisting price. It wasn't until it got below the 200 that I could get in. If I put the water atta back on with any luck, there we go. You can see that that's not quite right. You can see that there was a little bit of possibility here, and it didn't quite make it down to the 1 to 2. Okay, so it's now just after 1:15. I'm going to go back to the 15-minute chart and try my luck on this afternoon. So Euro US on the 15-minute chart. I just need to get this a bit bigger. I'm going to take off the indicators. So I'm taking off straightforward forex. I'm taking off the clouds and I'm taking off water atta. So we've got a nice clean chart there. My notes. So this morning there was a potential trade on Euro US. You can see that it went down to my target here. So I got a 2% count growth on that. We'll go down to the 1 minute chart and look at it more closely in a minute. Just one point to note, been a bit of a strange day, basically because there's been no news, no major news so far today. But you can see that at the start of today's session, price just kept on trundling along sideways. It didn't move very much at all. Had a bit of downward movement where I got my 2%, then came back up again, and then decided to go out of my field of play. It came back to test the field of play, and then it went down again. So can you see how it respected that line there on 3 occasions? And that is part of the strategy. When prices within the field of play, which is this yellow shaded area, it normally bounces around inside that field of play until it makes a bold move in one direction or another, and here it decided to come down. It may well go back up again to yesterday's POC. There was an outstanding point of control down here, and it has been taken out this morning, so that needs to be removed. That's no longer relevant. So here we are with the green trend line, the red trend line. We've now got the 1 o'clock candle there. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, a little bit easier to see what's going on. And this is the top of the 1 o'clock candle. This is the top of the wick on the 1 o'clock candle. If I look left from there, I can see that that candle is the nearest higher candle. So I'm going to put the magnet tool on. I'm going to try and get that to go onto that candle there. It's deciding not to. I'll just put a weaker magnet on if I can get it to move. There we go. So that's the nearest higher candle. I need to get this to touch the top of the wick on the 1 o'clock candle. Okay, now looking at the bottom of the 1 o'clock candle, the very next candle is exactly the same level. So what I'm thinking is, if I look all the way left to the beginning of today's trading, there's no lower candle than that 1 o'clock candle. What I need to do is make this a horizontal line. I'm going to take off the magnet tool because it does interfere with this. Now, make that horizontal and then just drag it up to touch the bottom of the 1 o'clock wick. There we go. So that's one pair marked up on the 15-minute chart. We need to do the other 3. So there's the 1 o'clock. Looking at the top and looking left, I can see that that red one there is the nearest higher candle. Looking at the bottom is another situation where that is the lowest that price has been all day. So once again, we need to make that horizontal line. Need to turn off the magnet tool because it does pull up towards it. Okay, so that's 2 pairs done. So that's the 1 o'clock candle. If I look at the top of the wick and look left, I can see that that red one there is the nearest higher candle. Oops, not that one, that one. Looking at the bottom of the 1 o'clock, the very next candle is definitely lower. This needs to come all the way up. So that's got to pass through the centre from left to right, through the middle there. And GBP card is the last pair. So I'm looking at the top of the 1 o'clock candle. I'm looking left, and I can see that that one is the nearest higher candle. Looking at the bottom, that's the nearest lower candle. Okay, so we've marked all 4 pairs up on the 15-minute chart. I'm going to get rid of the magnitude. I'm going to drop down to the 1-minute chart. I'm going to put my indicators back on. So that's straightforward for it. The cloud and the water atom. And as you can see, price was in no man's land. It's now definitely below the red trend line. It's out of no man's land, but price is moving sideways. Just make that little bit again. So we're below the red trend line, so we should only be looking for sells. But we're in a green cloud. And price is hovering round about yesterday's POC. So it may just carry on sticking to that POC. I would want price to break down below yesterday's POC before getting in for a sell. And the other thing that would stop me is the water atta. I like the black line to be above the red line I'm pointing away, and I want the histogram to be above the black line. The other thing I'm looking for is there's the 200 moving average, which is pointing upwards. I really want the 200 to start pointing down, and I want the 13 and the 62 to come below the 200. So the 62 would be below the 200, the 13 would be below the 62. If price decides to go up and above the green trend line, then we'll come back and look at it again. We are in a green cloud, and we do have a wave up. The latest wave, change of wave direction was going up, so it's more likely, I think, to go up above that green trend line, but nothing doing just yet. GBP, USD, similar situation in that price is below the green trend line, so we should be looking only for sells because it is definitely below the red trend line. We are in a wave down, but we've still got a green cloud. So we need the cloud to change, and we need the 62 and 13 moving average to be below the 200, and we need this to get more favorable. We want it like that. We want the black explosion line pointing away from the red dead zone line, and we want the histogram above the black line. So nothing to do there. There is no 130 news today. So I'm not really expecting a price movement in 3 minutes' time. I could be surprised, but I doubt it. UVP card looking very similar. A lot of sideways movement. Price has remained below the green trend line, so we can't look for buying opportunities, even though we've got a green cloud and we've got a wave of lots of conflicting indications here. Wave up normally means price is going up, but it hasn't. It's been up as far as the trend line, the green trend line, and then just bouncing below it, just bouncing off that green trend line. It's coming down, but it's coming down to yesterday's POC, so it could stay there for some time. But there's nothing much to say about that. I'll wait until the 1:30 news occurs. Not that there is any news, but 1:30 is often a time for movement. So whilst I'm waiting, I'm going to go back to if I can get the 6 o'clock, 6 a.m. point on this pair and just give you my thought process. The way to do this, because it sometimes gets out of control. And what I can do, go back to 6. This might be an easier way of doing it. Yes. Okay. So I entered at 7:04, and the reason I entered was because price, which had been just moving sideways, it moved up at that point and went up to the 200 and then bounced off it. It then came below the red trend line, so I started to think of sells. That wick was basically touching the red trend line. That candle was a green candle. The deciding factor was, well, the things that made me decide to go in was on that candle, there was a gap, a definite gap between the red trend line and the top of the candle. We were in a wave down. We did have red peace halves pushing the price down, and the cloud was definitely a red cloud. So we had the 13, the 62, and the 200 all in the right sequence. The cloud was getting wider. It narrowed at that point. It then began to get wider. So that was all telling me I should get in for a sell. And then I go down here for a bit of a double check, and I can see that the water atta has got the black line pointing away from the red line, and the red histogram is above the black line. So that's all good to go. On Euro US early in the morning, I can normally get away with a 3-pip stop loss, which happened to coincide with the 200 moving average. And the 1 to 2 took me down, again by coincidence, took me down roughly to the edge, the bottom end of the value area. My only doubt was that yesterday's POC was in the way. And you can see that price did in fact hesitate when it got to that line. 2 or 3 candles opened and closed very close to that yesterday's POC. So there was a bit of hesitancy, but it eventually went down. And the reason that I got in was, despite that yesterday's POC, was because everything else was in my favor. Wave down, below the red trend line, red wave blocks, a red cloud, and a very good, strong water atta. I could have stayed in a little bit longer, when I got my 2%. If I'd stayed in or got in again, I could have taken even more out of this one because it went even further down. Now, I posted this one earlier, and I made the point that price actually respected my green trend line, and then it went back to the bottom edge of the value area, and then it went back up to yesterday's POC, and then it came down to the bottom of the value area. It lingered around there for a while, and then it started to come back down. So it's definitely continued on its way down, but it did respect those lines on the way down. And it continued to respect the green trend line. It bounced, it went go through it at first, then it came back up again and stayed within the green trend line. So let's have a look at the current situation. If I do what I did earlier and go to 1530. There we go. So I'm on the 1 minute chart, and the reason I'm doing that is that I'm running some tests with the Costello trade assistant, and that operates on the 1 minute chart. So I'm doing this so I can compare. So price is now above, well, it's on the green trend line. It's not making a lot of progress. It seems to be respecting that green trend line. It's hit it a few times, it's broken past it, and then it's come back down again. So it's not yet below the red trend line. It's actually in no man's land right now, and we don't ever get in a trade. So we want price to either break above the green trend line, in which case we'll look for a buy. We'll be aware that the 200 moving average is just up there, and price may go up there and then just bounce off the 200. But what we want is we want some indication that price is going to go up. And at a minute, the 200 is pointing down, the 62 is pointing down, the 13 is pointing down. We've got red wave box, we've got red PSARs, and we're in a wave down. So there's very few indications that it's going to go upwards, and no indication at all that price is going to go down because the black line is below the red line. So there's absolutely nothing happening there. As I suspected, the news was, well, the non-news was a non-event. So Euro USD, there's nothing going on. Euro CAD, similar. We are still in no man's land. It hasn't even got out of no man's land yet. So if we're going to get in for a buy, we need price to be above the green trend line. If we're going to get in for a sell, we want price to be below the red trend line. So there's nothing happening there. We are in a wave down, and we've got red wave box, but we're still in a green cloud. And the water actor is telling me to keep out. But I think this might be a short session again today. We cannot get above the green trend line, so we cannot look for a buy. If we look for a sell, because we're below the red trend line, we're going to find that this 200 moving average is potentially a barrier. But we're in a wave down. We're below the red trend line. We are in a wave down. We've got red wave blocks. But we've got a barrier. The water actor is telling me I can get in because the black line is above the red dead zone. I'm pointing away from it, and the histogram is above the black line. So that's telling me I can get in, but I'm not going to get in. Two reasons. One, price often bounces off this 200 moving average. Two, I need these two other moving averages to be below the 200 moving average before I'm going to get in. So yes, it looks like it's going to go down that way, but it could just be it could just return to the 200 moving average. So this is looking good. This is looking good. but I'm deterred by the fact that the moving averages are in the wrong sequence. Let me just mark this out of interest. It's not not getting into a trade. I'm just marking this out of interest. Will it go up and get above my green trend line, or will it continue down as everything is indicating? So I'll put on a short position. I'm just going to mark up my potential stop loss. Now, there is a suggested stop loss here, this red horizontal line. That would be, I didn't mean to move that, but just move it back. So if I was to use a suggested stop loss, it would be that red line there. So that would be 5.9. It's a little bit hefty. I could probably get away with 3.5, 4 pips on this pair. But I'm just going to look and see how far that's going to need to go down. So it's going to need to go down to that position there. And what I always do is I just do a sanity check. So I'll put a horizontal line on that level there. And then I'll go up to the 15-minute chart and I'm going to look left. I don't need to look too far left because I can see that there is some imbalance there. To put the imbalance on, you can see that there's a big chunk of imbalance taking me down to that level. And then there's another chunk of imbalance here taking me past that level. So that is looking good for a sell. On the 15-minute chart, we're not looking good for a sell. We're looking more like a buy. But I'm trading on the 1-minute chart. And this is still telling me sell. It's not as strong a sell as it was 3 candles ago, but it's still indicating a sell rather than a buy. And we've looked left and we've seen that imbalance. So it's still potentially a sell. It's not confirmed because, as I said, when price was here, it's always possible that price will just go back and retest that 200 and then come down. Or it could simply go all the way back up again, but it's not unusual for price to come down and then retest that line there, that black line. So we can watch that for a couple of minutes. I think that is probably the only potential trade. It's going to go back through the pairs. So the GBP CAD, similar to GBP USD, it's broken down past the 200, but it's definitely gone back up to test it. So it's very similar. We are below the red trend line. We do have a wave down. We've got red wave block. The thing that's against this trade is the 62, which is the green line, and the 13, which is the red line. I want those to, first of all, I want them to cross over each other. And then I want the two of them to come down below the green trend line. Then I'm in a really strong selling position. But at the minute, it's going back, it's testing the 200. Don't think it's going to go a long way back, but it could go back up to the yesterday PLC. Prices normally, when it's in the yellow shaded area, it normally moves to, on several occasions, go back to the POC, yesterday's POC line. So it could go back, test that again, and then come back down. It's not looking like a sell at the minute, and I suspect GBP USD, something similar is happening. So what I'm just going to tell you what I'm going to do with these four pairs this afternoon. Rather than sit and watch the chart, I'm going to set some alerts. I'm going to set an alert that will tell me when price breaks down past this 200 moving average. So it'll probably be sort of in that area there. And I also want an alert when it gets above the green trend line, because if it gets above the green, we then start looking for buys. If it comes down below here, then we start once again looking for sells. We don't just jump in when we get an alert, we come back and reanalyze. And what we need is that scenario rather than this scenario. So we need dark red histogram. We want the histogram to be above the black line. We want the black line to be above the red line. And we want it to be moving away from the red line. So I'll set a couple of alerts to tell me on the mobile when it either breaks down below here or when it breaks above the green trend line. And then I'll come back and reanalyze. GBP USD, yeah, as I thought, very similar to the previous pair. Didn't really make any progress. It came down below the 200, then it returned to the 200. And that is, if you remember what I said was, I wanted these other two lower moving averages, the 13 and 62. I want them to be below the 200 moving average, and then I'm more confident of a sell. Now this is possibly going to go back. There's a breaker structure indication there. It's probably going to go up to that. It might then go up to the green trend line, and even if it gets past the green trend line, it might bounce off the yesterday's PLC. So again, I can set a couple of alerts. I'll only be interested in getting in for a buy once it's breached not only the green trend line, but also the yesterday's PLC. So I've got an alert up here somewhere. And if it's going to go for a sell, I want it to get below where it's been here. I want it to break past that point. So I want an alert coming on here. And then I'll come back and really analyze Euro card. First thing I notice is sideways movement. Second thing I notice is we're still in no man's land. There's nothing happening. We can't get in until price either gets above the green trend line or below the red trend line. So I want an alert just above the green trend line, or I want an alert just below the red trend line, and then I'm come back and reanalyze. And Euro US is probably very similar. We have broken above the green trend line, so a little bit of hope, but not much. And we've got the 200 moving average up there. And that's potentially where it might rebound. And there's only 3.5 pips between where price is now and that 200 moving average. So I'm really not that interested in getting in for a buy until it gets past that 200 moving average. If I was going to get in for a sell, I would want price to be below the red trend line. We are in a wave up, but we've got a red cloud, contradiction. We've got green PSARs, we've got green wave up, but we've got a red cloud. And it's looking like the 13 is heading back to the 62. So really not a good time to get in. Currently price is coming back to my green trend line, and this is telling me to keep out. So not a lot going on, but that's really down to the fact that on the economic calendar, there's been no news. Well, a couple of China items yesterday, 1 euro low level and 2 medium impact at 3 o'clock. So those are yet to come. I think if there is going to be a movement of any significance, it'll be at 3 o'clock. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to say I shall be back at 1 p.m. UK time on Friday. So I'll see you then. Thanks for jumping on.